Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Thank you, Marty, for putting this together and inviting us to present today. Thank you, Scott and Jackson Walker, for hosting. I'd love to share with you a little bit today about what Nexxess International Business Advisors do. We are an estate planning and trust structure firm, but we're here to support and be a tool in your tool belt for anything that you may need when you're talking to specific clients that may have capital gains tax deferral situations. This can be only on property and business structure, so we'll kind of go through that in a little bit here, but I have some slides that we'll go through as well.
If I need somebody progress,
yeah, I'll just click through it. Sounds great. So again, Nexxess Business Advisors. I'm the regional manager, Mora, and you'll meet the principal, Scott McGrath, later on today. I'm here tomorrow as well. Yes, presentation is not to constitute tax, financial, legal advice. If you have to apply to your specific situation, it's always best to get counsel with those professionals prior to doing anything that we're speaking of today. So own nothing, control everything. So there's a lot of noise out there. You know, we hear this quite frequently, Rockefeller Trust, all of these different things. Own nothing, control everything. But there's a lot of firms out there, a lot of bad actors, promoters that we need to kind of sift through and you know, make sure that we're doing things correctly. So it's not only about having trust structure, but it's making sure that it's created properly, it's implemented with the right contracts into your situation properly, and operated properly, filing those tax returns on time. What I appreciate about working with Nexxess International, the firm is actually based out of Dallas, Texas here. I'm the California manager, but what I appreciate is they have attorneys, CPAs, enrolled agents, even CFAs, and partnering with other attorney firms really make us stronger, where we can evaluate and help the client from start to finish. So it's incredibly important there as well. So proper trust structure, what we find is that these three types of individuals benefit the most. Property owners. Property owners can be not only when you're selling real estate, but this could be for stock, for crypto, also for selling business, right? Valuating, putting the value on the IP, that's intellectual property, tangible and intangible, even our goodwill, right? Our reputation, that all has value. So making sure that we're setting up the trust structure prior to any sale, prior to close of escrow is most important. Be proactive, but sitting with the right professionals and the right team members that can really build this out for you. Also, the second type of individual is for investors. So investors can also, it's for, you know, rental income, or you're investing in equity funds, K1, right? Before you take that distribution, right, before it's active, converting it to passive, making sure that we're setting up the right contracts and structures where the trust is holding that asset. The trust receives the proceeds, right? Being able to defer tax on passive income. And then finally, for our business owners. So our business owners, when they sell the business, it's passive, right? That's capital gains tax. But how about when you're operating the business? In an LLC, a corporation, we produce income. You know, I'm a business owner as well. We produce active income. So with proper trust structure, we can't completely defer all of it, but we can do a good chunk, 50 to 70 to 90% in some cases. It's all about how you're currently structured, but evaluating that and making sure that we're implementing it properly so you can defer those dollars. So these are the three ultimate benefits. I'm going to get into some mumbo jumbo in a minute with the different provisions, but this is really what it's ultimately giving our clients. Asset protection. You want to be able to have that ironclad asset protection, but you also want to have control of that asset. There's a lot of structures out there where you have asset protection, but you're giving up control to another entity. You should have control of that asset. And tax control. I think this is one of the more important parts, is controlling that tax. Not saying that you're never going to pay it, right? But defer it, but you can defer it for decades, a generation to continue on, right? So having that tax control is important as well. So 7 essential components provisions that are interwoven into the fabric of the trust structure. Most important to make sure that this type of trust is a non-statutory trust, right? So a non-statutory trust is not set up within the state. It is domiciled in the U.S. It has a federal tax ID number. It files a federal tax return every year. But being non-statutory gives you more flexibility and latitude. You need to be non-grantor. We also have an executive summary, the glossary terms, but I don't, if you may know what these are already, but I won't go through in too much detail, but we do have all the definitions, draw pictures to these later. So non-grantor, you want to make sure that your trust, with this structure, that there's a grantor. There must be someone that creates the trust, right? But then through that process, there's a resignation, so there is no longer a grantor in the trust structure. Non-self-settling. So this means that the client is not the grantor as well. They're not settling, they're not creating their own trust, which is important. Irrevocable, giving your asset protection, and dual track, so we can use both sides of the tax code, simple or complex, depending on the design and the objective for that tax year. Discretionary, making sure it's up to the discretion of the trustee to treat your trust as a simple or a complex trust for that tax year. And the Spencer provision. Spencer provision, no judge or court may issue a turnover order on the assets of these trusts. It also separates our beneficiaries from the trust. Right? I love my kids. I have my 3 minor children. I have my 2 elderly in-laws, 85 and 88 years old, because we're taking care of a lot more of their medical expenses. And so with that structure, I have my beneficiaries, my minor kids. I love them, but maybe one day, right? One has some type of creditors after them, gambling, shopping, whatever it is. Being able to separate the beneficiaries from the assets, so you have protections for the non-grantor and spendthrift, that they cannot pierce the trust either from the grantor side or beneficiary side. Again, giving more of that asset protection. So I don't harp on too much of this, but active versus passive. We're familiar with that. Active is when I'm producing income or my company's producing income. Passive is when the asset is making money. So if the asset's making money is passive, there's a way to defer that tax. So 6 types of passive income. We have capital gains, rental, dividends, interest, royalties, and K1. And we have some great presenters today. I'm sure we're hearing more, but there are different incomes that we're producing from the different opportunities that are out there. And so evaluating your current structure, seeing where the money is being created from, and then implementing the structure to help you defer the tax can be a great tool. This isn't a one-size-fits-all. This can be along other strategies and deployed. And there's quite a few strategies out there that can help you defer tax, right? Delaware Statutory Trust, you have different ones that we'll hear from as well. This is just another tool, right? And it may make sense to deploy for your situation. A few clients, of course, those are not their real pictures, but kind of rounded up to the dollar on their specific scenario. But active income, operating a corporation, net income of 2.3 million, right? That's after all their expenses, payroll taxes, the net income, right? That's what we get taxed on. So implementing a trust structure during the tax year, can't do anything from past years, right? The milk's already spilled. But during the current tax year for a business owner, implementing proper trust structure, they can help defer the tax. So in this case, prior to implementing this structure, they were paying over $800,000 in tax, and now they're able to defer up to 70% into a structure that they still can control, but that they can utilize those funds in order to invest in other investments, invest maybe in another business, buy real estate, but again, deferring that tax. There are things that you should not spend your money on, your trust money on, for your own food, fun, fashion, right? This is not just to clothe you and, go to Vegas and spend $20,000. No, this is money that needs to be allocated and used properly, but we can help you navigate through that. Another scenario that we find is capital gains tax from a sale of a business. Okay? Many business owners don't start with a lot of capital, but then when they go to sell that business, they're incredibly disturbed with a sticker shock, right? They didn't understand how much capital gains tax that they would have to pay. So we can work in line with the existing, attorneys, business brokers, anybody that's helping that client. We have CFAs on our staff as well that can help do valuations. We can maybe just step in it as an advisory role if everything is done, help you evaluate the PSA, do what we need to do from start to finish to make sure that we're implementing the most effective strategy to defer that tax for that business owner. So in this specific scenario, she started a business for $50,000. This is a hospice care company. She sold her interest to her existing partner that was remaining in the business, and she was able to defer over $1.7 million in capital gains tax. Since this time, she's used that money to reinvest in 3 residential properties that she's converting to assisted living centers and planning on selling those in the next 5 years. So what I appreciate about this strategy as well is it can continue to be reused and reused. It's not like you're getting one type of structure to help you out with one transaction or one type of income. We find that this can be multifaceted and allow you to continue to grow, use that pre-tax dollars to reinvest and grow more. K1 income, right, for the investors. Quite a few business owners, they're running businesses, they're investors, they're investing in equity funds, right? Quite a few. Well, depending on how you're investing in that equity fund, is it an LLC, probably a limited partner? How are you taking that position? So structuring it a little bit better, changing that account holder to a trust, right? Separate legal entity than you, files its own federal tax return, but it's how the income is classified during that tax year. It's about that deferral, being able to defer that tax. So in this case, $250,000 invested with proper trust structure. They were able to defer 90% of that K1. Okay, they pay some tax, that's fine. But being able to defer a good chunk and then again, reinvest that maybe in other investments that they're choosing. Just a sample of one of the trust structures. It's all about structure, right? Everybody has a different scenario. What kind of contracts are we implementing in order to make sure that you're legally moving assets or money from one entity to the other? So when we lean on our attorneys and other legal counsel to make sure that we're setting this up properly. And I say we, I'm not, an accountant or a CPA, but we have those on our staff. So in this scenario, this individual running an LLC, he's the owner of the LLC. He set up a dual trust structure. The top trust is designed to be a simple trust, meaning it's using the simple tax code, which you're required to distribute. And that's what it's designed to do. It's distributing into the bottom bucket. The bottom bucket is the one that holds all of your assets and all the passive income that those assets produce. So it can be a great design for the right individual where you can defer that tax. So our trust is grounded in law. It is written to comply with all different trust law categories and governing law and codes. Trust is guaranteed to be compliant and consistent with the U.S. Constitution, U.S. Supreme Court, and other case law court decisions, and it conforms with all contract, trust, and tax laws in all 50 states. Go ahead. So I'll kind of leave it open for Q&A now. Kind of went through that, but any questions? And if you would like to reach out, my Calendly link, you can definitely talk and converse. Any questions that you may have, we can hop on and do some strategy sessions, and we'd love to build a relationship with you and anybody that has questions.
How does it differ from all the other trusts that are out there, like North Dakota, South Dakota Trust, Delaware Trust, Nevada Trust?
There's multiple trust structures out there for sure, right? So it's just evaluating what makes the most sense for that individual. In this case, we're focused on the trust structure where it has the 7 different provisions that are most important. We find that there's other strategies out there that can do phenomenally as well, but it just depends on the objective. Is it to receive income today? Is it to defer, right? So, just evaluating what makes the most sense.
And so, at what stage, I mean, I think you said entrepreneurs, at what stage, I mean, do people have, let's say, trust funds, like an inheritance, or that's already in a trust, right? So, because what part of this is that organizing the retirement scenario and inheritance scenario, correct? Right?
Yes, absolutely. Building generational wealth. But, it's really about those that are finding that they're having more of a tax issue. They're running a business or they're going to sell an asset, right? You're going to create a taxable event. So what does that look like? Are you going to be paying $30,000 a year or more in tax? I mean, that's all of our small business owners are typically paying that. So getting ahead of it and exploring this type of strategy, it's that tax. Is there a taxable event? What kind of taxable event is that? Where are you creating the tax from? And how can we implement a structure that makes the most sense? And it can continue to build that generational wealth as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess a lot, two things that I've heard a lot about the trust space is that trusts are typically not litigated. I think less than 5% or 3% of trusts are litigated versus if your child's getting married and they get a prenuptial agreement, 50% of prenuptial agreements are litigated, right? So in terms of a proven structure, there's higher value to that.
Absolutely, and this is kind of the prenup without having the uncomfortable prenup conversation, right? Being able to structure yourself ahead of time and having that separate legal entity.
And do you ever advise on that, or?
Yes, we do advise on that, but it's sensitive, right? You have to just make sure that if you haven't been married yet, right, making sure that assets that are solely owned by you, right, are legitimately moved into the trust. If they're already married, that's no.
So what's very interesting, obviously, I mean, you had the Pritzkers and they broke up their trust, but there's also the IBM founders, and there's a whole study on that where the granddaughter of the IBM founders, she had a relationship with another woman, and because they didn't have same-sex marriage in those days, she adopted the woman. But then they broke up, and the woman was still adopted, and then when the grandfather died, she sued for a piece of the estate, right? So that's where, trust might come in a little bit better because so many amorphous things can happen or contingencies that you never accounted for.
I agree with that. Yeah, making sure that you're structured and it's written out, spelled out exactly how you see fit, so you're not leaving it up to, especially the government coming in with probate and, other things, right? So, I mean, this really can shield a family from the inevitable. Also, estate tax. A big deal. I mean, the transfer of wealth, right, from just family-owned businesses, right? The devastation. Pat was talking on the last panel when we were in New York, but it's devastating the amount of generational wealth that doesn't go to the next generation. They're wiped out, and it's absolutely, this is a strategy that can be deployed for family businesses, right? So they can continue for generations.
What about hard assets?
Absolutely. All your hard assets should go into the beneficial trust. That bottom trust holds all of your assets, real estate, all of your investments, any kind of hard asset, yeah.
Would that include
your boats, your cars, your everything. And the trust, because the trust is responsible to pay for, to maintain your assets, but only if they have been sold into the trust and you have a contract moving that into the trust. So if the trust holds it, the trust can now, right, maintain. If you want to use trust money to go buy that car, go buy that boat, then it's held within the trust. Yeah, it's an asset of the trust to be maintained with that as well.
Yeah, there's a refinement. You're from California, right?
Yes.
So there's a refinement in California law because if you buy a boat and you put it in the state of Florida or Texas, let's say, but if you bring the boat to California and it docks for a day, and within the first 2 years of that boat being owned, they will charge you the sales tax on the boat. Right?
Yeah,
I'm wondering if that's a circumstance that you guys, can control.
Yeah, this doesn't help us with any type of sales tax. Even there's the mansion tax in California. Something over 4 million. No, because it's a sales tax, it's an assessment. This doesn't help in that area. It's the income tax that we can help.
Right, so, but I
Yeah.
mean, even then, your boat is still getting taxed.
Yeah, you're still getting taxed on the.
Whereas in Florida, there's no taxes on the boat if you own it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, we'd have to look into that because it's the trust holding the asset, but it's like, that would be a very,
I'm just saying, it's intriguing because California has gone,
Well, we're all haywire on all taxes. I'm like, we have to tax if you're breathing.
Live there, or go there. What about for professionals, like, lawyers like myself, who get taxed to death, right, as a K-1 equity partner? Is there anything that, on just the legal income side, that a trust would be able to defer taxes?
Absolutely, yes. You can actually make this trust a limited partner to that structure, to your LLC. So, up to 90%. So this can be a great avenue. Our legal counsel is using a dual trust structure. He's been operating it for he's been advising on this type of trust structure for over 22 years, and I think he's been using his for 14. He implements a lot for oil and gas guys, others, but yes, as an attorney, it's just a separate contract. It has to be, ways to pull that money
So the
out.
trust would be the partner.
Yes, that's right.
Does everyone follow like rules or anything like that?
No, because it's a non-grantor and a non-self-settling trust. You are the trustee. You get to move and manage the assets, but you're moving and managing assets that the trustee did not create.
Okay, we'll need to talk more, because we definitely need to find ways to defer insane amount of tax.
Is there an estate management group here at Jackson Walker?
There is, which I've actually talked to the partnership once before. Our partnership agreement only allows individuals to be partners right now. We're requiring them into our partnership agreement, because I talked to them a couple of years ago, or maybe a year ago, about maybe SC ownership, which has some benefits as well. This might be more, and it didn't go anywhere. But if we can show that, hey, all of us equity partners could defer 70% of our taxes, I think that's a pretty compelling argument to change the ownership.
If I have a fractional art piece, am I able to put a trust around that?
Yeah.
Fantastic, great.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone.